Hello and welcome to NPC, that stands for Next Portable Console. I'm one of your co-hosts, Federico, and it's my pleasure to be joined, as always, by the one and only Mr. Brendon Bigley. Hello, Brendon.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you?
It's actually not even morning for any of us.
That's
Maybe it is
true.
for you, dear listener.
It was, it was morning
doing well.
a few hours ago, and we're also joined by Mr. John Boris. Hello, John.
Hello. Good to see you, Federico and Brendon.
That you are rocking another awesome T-shirt from Japan.
I am. Game Boy Advance.
How many T-shirts do you have that you can show off?
Well, it's funny you should ask. I thought I had 3. It turns out number 3, my son bought a size that was a little too small for me. So it's gonna be his shirt instead, I think.
Okay.
That one is the Family Computer Disk System shirt. So I'm very sad that didn't work out because it's a really cool
Brutal.
look. But I'm good. I've got my Tokyo shirt and I've got the Game Boy Advance, which is my favorite system. So
okay, we have a bunch of news to get to.
We do.
I'm also bringing a small topic to the show for something that I tried this week, and I'm sort of losing my mind about it. So we're going to talk about that later. But first, we have some really important follow-up.
Super important.
In case people didn't notice, a few nights ago, the NPC YouTube channel went live. I saw it in the morning because I was sleeping when that was happening. I was like, wait, why did NPC go live? And much to my surprise, it was an unboxing by our Brendon, who received the Odin Portal. Finally.
Yes.
Brendon, we need to know your first impressions. We need to know how it's going. There it is. Mine
covered in fingerprints. If you can see the
Yes,
video.
it's very. I noticed that in your live stream too. I was like, oh my gosh, that thing's covered with fingerprints.
As an update, before we get to Brendon's impressions of the portal, I just need to share something. In the previous episode, I mentioned that I was trying to mod the Odin 2 to make the buttons quieter. Right now, my portal is unusable because my mod didn't work out. So my plan was to do what a bunch of people did with for example, a few months ago with the SP, with the Ambernic, with the RG35XX SP. The idea being you just put some electrical tape below the buttons so that you make the buttons a little bit quieter. Well, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not an engineer. I'm not really a hardware person when it comes to these things. I just assumed it was going to work. Turns out that the portal is different from the SP. The portal is using conducive buttons that need to press on the contacts of the board underneath the controller to transfer your input. And by putting any tape that sort of does not conduct electricity, well, guess what? The buttons are not going to work. So I tried that with electrical tape and it didn't work. It did make the buttons much quieter. It was lovely. But obviously pressing the buttons was doing nothing. So I thought, well, maybe I need a tape that does conduct electricity. So I got some copper tape. I didn't even know that it existed.
Okay.
I tried with copper tape and I put too much of it under the... I slightly overshot my attempt, and now the buttons don't actually physically press anymore. But then I realized I got to think about this in a completely different way. So I opened the portal and I looked underneath the buttons and I saw that under the buttons, the face button, the A, B, X, and Y buttons, there are small circular, like conductive pads. Those are the things that are actually touching on the contacts on the PCB, transferring your inputs. And I thought, what if I can find some replacements for these very small, like about this big, very small pads? And what if I add another layer of these pads? Well, I found them from China, a pack of 100. Obviously, way too many.
You'll never run out.
But they were only selling it in a pack of 100. So anyway, they were only selling it in packs of 100. They're currently in Milan. I was hoping I would get them today, but they're still sort of making their way to Rome. I will let you know if I can manage to... I will manage to salvage my portal because worst case scenario, I'll just go back to having a really clicky portal. But if the mod works, I'll let you know. That being said...
I don't know, Federico, did you see in the Discord that someone suggested there's some alternative buttons you can get for the Portal that have, I think they were PlayStation symbols on them?
Yeah, I don't want to have PlayStation symbols. So.
And that they are quieter, supposedly. But
okay, I'll think about it. I'll see if this mod works, and if it doesn't, I'll think about the PlayStation buttons. Sorry.
Did you get this with your Portal? Did you?
I did. I
got
did. It's
extra,
like
I did.
alternative buttons.
Yeah.
I haven't tried them. Well, I think you'll figure it out. I feel pretty confident that you'll figure it out.
I will.
Okay, short version. I'll give the short version. I don't know if I like the Portal.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh,
interesting.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Why?
That's a take.
Yeah, I think it's too big,
Oh.
which is like the most me.
If I had to guess, I would guess that would be your thing.
Yeah, the screen is beautiful. The performance is obviously great. Like, here's the thing: going into the Portal, a lot of stuff was self-evident because I've used the Odin 2 Pro and the Odin 2 Mini Pro. So, like, performance-wise, I knew what was going to happen when I turned the thing on. The same games that work on those other devices will work here, et cetera, et cetera. So it really just was like, hey, is the form factor better? Does it feel good? And the answer is yes. Like, the form factor is amazing. Like, it feels really well built. I love the way the shoulder buttons feel, especially with the grip on it. Did either of you get the grip?
Mine's still in the mail somewhere.
I did not get it because I was stupid when I ordered the Portal. So I put in an order a few weeks ago. Actually,
that's what I did too.
Last month, and it's still nowhere to be found. I sent an email to Ayn a few days ago saying, "Hey, what's going on with this grip?" And they were like, "We're still processing all of the March orders, and we'll do that by next month." So.
So I will say, like, just for the viewers at home, the people watching this on YouTube, like, you can see there are some ergonomics built into this. Like, there are bumps for your hands and stuff, and it feels like not bad in the hand. Definitely kind of like flat and kind of tablety. And it doesn't feel flat and tablety and comfortable in the way like the Steam Deck does. I'll say, but as soon as you fit it into the grip, like, it adds so much bulk.
Oh, I can see. Yeah.
Like, your hands like really do wrap around it, and I find generally that a lot of the people whose reviews I watch on the internet, like the Russes of the world, I think they just have like bigger hands or want more purchase on the thing than I do. Like, I usually don't care about it, but the TPU grip does make a huge difference here. But at the end of the day, every time I turn it on and start using it, I'm like, I don't think this is giving me that joy factor that I got from the original Odin 2 Pro, or that I constantly get from the Odin 2 Mini Pro. And that goes a long way, I think. Like, I say all the time in reviews and on the show and elsewhere, like, you want a device that is enticing enough that it kind of invites you to pick it up and play with it. And I'm not getting that out of the Portal at the moment. And I'm wondering if, like, I need to change some things or add a front end, because I don't have a front end. Like, it's basically set up, and I've used it to play like a couple hours of Avowed, almost a tongue twister. And I played some 3DS stuff, and I played some GameCube stuff, and like, I've been putting it through its paces a little bit here and there. But I haven't had that moment where I'm like, this is the device I want to be using instead of the Mini. Even when it comes to streaming, like, I am more blown away by the fact that I can play something like Avowed or Indiana Jones or whatever on the Mini than having the bigger screen that is OLED on the Portal. Like, there is something more novel and interesting about playing on the Mini for me than on the Portal. And at the end of the day, I think it literally is just like the size of it. It feels a little bit too large. I do think I land... Even, this is early on, so these impressions might change, to be clear. And if you have a Portal and you like it, obviously keep using it. Like, that's great. I'm happy that you found a thing you like. But for me, I think my recommendation remains the same, which is that the actual, like, the base Odin 2 is still the thing I would recommend to the most people. That battery life is amazing. The screen, even though it's not OLED, is still great. It's obviously cheaper, and it is the size of the Switch Lite, which is so portable. It is so compact, and it is the right size for streaming. It's the right size for games that were played on televisions. Like, it is great. For me, somebody who is obviously obsessed with portability, the Mini is still always going to be the go-to for me. I love that thing to death. And honestly, this has been the weirdest thing for me, is that playing games on the Portal has actually made me start playing the Mini more, because I was like, oh, I forgot I could do this on the Mini, and now I'm back to the Mini and like kind of falling in love with it as a device all over again, even though I kind of had it like relegated to PSP prep for Into the Aether. Now I'm like, wow, I should really start Fire Emblem Fates again on here, or whatever. And like now I'm making my way through Fire Emblem Fates again. Like I'm finding that the Portal has driven me back to the Mini. And again, that might change, but that's kind of where my head's at now. I will say though, I love this big bag that they gave me.
I have that too.
It was a big bag. You can put the Portal in. I think that's nice.
So what you gonna do with the Portal now?
I want to keep using it at least for another week or two, and see if there are any changes that really push me over the edge. Because I bought it initially really for streaming. Like that was the thing that I wanted it for. I wanted it to be playing Xbox games on. I wanted it to be playing GeForce Now on. I started playing Monster Hunter Wilds on there as an answer to our XL segment from last week. I was like, let me try this and see how this feels. And it feels good and it looks good, but also I could be doing that on the Mini and it would be like somehow more miraculous. And also Wilds has great like text scaling options, so I can make the text bigger on that tiny screen. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do outside of just test it more and see how I feel about it. And if I'm not, I don't know, if I'm not convinced, like I'll probably sell it. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have pre-orders in who would much rather just like know that one will come within a week if they buy it off of eBay or something, if I list it there. So if you see a white Ayn Odin 2 Portal Pro with a TPU grip on eBay in the next week, you'll know what happened.
Yeah.
Listed in New York. Yeah.
It's kind of similar. Like this whole conversation sort of reminds me of when people, for example, they have an iPad, like an iPad Air or a small iPad Pro, and then they start like reading or watching videos on an iPad Mini. And even though the iPad Mini is technically like worse than an iPad Air or a small iPad Pro, it feels better because it's nicer. And there's something to, like you said, miraculous, but there's something to the idea of something so small that can do pretty much all the things that a bigger version of the same device can do, but in a much more compact form factor that sort of makes you appreciate it more.
Yeah, it makes it more flexible too. I mean, the thing about the Mini is that it's the size of a paperback book, basically, and you know, the Mini, the iPad Mini, and the Mini, the Odin Mini is kind of a similar thing where it's just
a little bigger than the PSP.
You can take it more places and do more things with it in that sense, I think.
Yeah, and then again, coming down to packing, like if I'm bringing the ROG Ally, do I need another thing that's almost the size of the ROG Ally? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's pretty close inside. Federico, I had two more small follow-up items that I want to raise briefly. The first one is really a follow-on to our conversation last week about Microsoft and what they're doing with handhelds, because there was news this week. Tom Warren had it on The Verge that there is a new way to enter text on a keyboard with a controller for Xbox, and that to me is one of those things like it's like, how is it that this wasn't possible before? How is it that this was so hard before? And it has been really hard. I think it's great that they've done it, but they're inching their way very slowly towards handheld compatibility. The other item I wanted to raise was that I finally pulled the trigger during a sale. I don't have it yet, but I have bought the Mechanism gaming pillow.
Yes.
Nice.
I found myself over the past week or so sitting on my couch and using either my iPad or my MacBook Pro and realizing that what I do a lot of the times with those devices is I grab a pillow and I kind of put it in my lap and I prop the laptop or prop the iPad on the pillow just to make it a little easy, raise it up a little bit, make it a little more comfortable to hold and read or do whatever I'm doing. Yeah. And I thought, why am I not doing this with my handheld games? I mean, if I'm doing this all the time with the iPad and a laptop, I should be doing it for games too. So I'll report back later as to how that goes. But
nice.
I picked one up along with a couple of accessories over the past week.
Nice. I think you're gonna like it.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. It's coming Monday, so by the next time we record, I'll have it.
Hey, speaking of things you ordered, did you ever get the new 8BitDo Ultimate?
I did. It actually came like on Wednesday. I plugged it in and charged it, and that's all I've done so far. I have not actually used it yet.
We should talk about that more when you've used it.
Yeah, we should. I'm going to use it some this weekend. It just came in the other day, and it looks fantastic. And it's just like the old one, very solidly built. But I haven't used it quite yet. So we'll see.
Cool.
Nice. All right. Moving on to some news. We have some reports from a bunch of analysts that are basically sort of predicting a June launch for the Nintendo Switch 2, which we talked about.
Right.
We think it sounds like all the stars are sort of aligning for a June launch, just at the beginning of the summer. But they're also predicting quite possibly a price of $400 and potentially maybe even slightly more than that. And I kind of wanted to get a vibe check from you guys. What do we think of the Nintendo Switch 2 at $399 versus $449, for example?
Well, there are some reports that it might be even as much as $499, Federico, in that article.
I would guess that they're doing whatever they can to get it at the $399 price point. I think that is the one that is the most enticing, probably to families, which is what Nintendo is thinking about more so than any other market segment. That said, tariffs, baby. Like they might just be jacking the price up just to like cover the inevitable losses that they'll start to feel when those kick in. So I don't know, man. I would guess, I'm no analyst, but I would guess $399 personally.
Yeah.
I think that's the case. I think that, I could definitely see it going up to $449. I think once you hit $500, at that point, people are going to be comparing it to a PS5. Which I think is a weird comparison, but they will because it'll be essentially the same price. And I don't think that benefits Nintendo at all.
I agree. And also just like $449 sounds bad. And I know that's a silly thing to say, but that means something.
It does. Yeah.
In like market research, the way people perceive a price is so important to actual pricing that when you see something in $449, it's like, that's close enough to $500 that again you start to bump up against the PS5. As if the first number in the price starts with 3, people will be more likely to buy it.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
I also kind of wonder if maybe these analysts are considering like maybe rumors coming from the supply chain, and if maybe Nintendo's never done this, but I wonder if maybe we may be looking at like multiple models of the Switch 2. Maybe there's one with more memory. Maybe there's one with, I don't want to say a bigger screen, but like I wonder if maybe there are multiple variations of the Switch 2 in the supply chain being assembled and packaged up and being sent off to warehouses. And maybe this confusion regarding like, oh, it's going to be 400. No, it's going to be more than 400. Like if maybe we're looking at that, it could also, it might as well be a bundle. Like there's the base console starts at $399, but maybe there's a bundle, it's bundled up with the game. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
possible. Or it's maybe there's a version that has the dock and maybe there's a version that doesn't have the dock. I don't know. Like how compatible is it with the new dock? I would assume very, personally. But there a lot of question marks there. That's a great point though, Federico. Like as recently as I think last year there were rumors that they might launch with an LED and an OLED model.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that could be the $100 price difference by itself.
Could be. So and the Direct is approaching. Like it's when is it?
Soon.
April 2nd.
Right?
April. So it's in about 10 days, really.
It's less than 2 weeks,
Yeah, incredible.
Amazing.
Speaking of the Nintendo Switch 2, we saw this report that potentially the last big, aside from Metroid Prime 4, but the last big game for the Nintendo Switch is the Wii U port of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, this game... some people did some digging in the source code of the game. I don't know how, but they did it. And apparently the game, aside from the fact that, of course, it's using dynamic resolution. So it's automatically scaling between different resolution, going as low as 540p, like very low resolution. All
very
the way,
much the norm for a lot of Switch.
Very much the norm.
Yeah.
So that's not the news. The news is that the game is hiding a 60 FPS mode in the source code, that it's not really being used because the game mostly runs at 30 FPS, including in cutscenes. It doesn't look like they're using the 60 FPS mode at all. Some people are speculating that that's sort of in preparation for the same game running in compatibility mode on the Switch 2, but with higher frame rates. Interesting, I think. Wouldn't be surprised if, obviously there's going to be a direct for the Switch 2, but maybe after that we start seeing some updates to older games like Breath of the Wild getting an update in 2025. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's now supporting higher resolutions and higher frame rates.
I'm really interested to see what direction they go with here. Excuse me. I'm curious to see if it's something similar to what Microsoft did when we went from the Xbox One generation to the Xbox Series generation, where a lot of games just got across the board like random improvements just because the hardware was better. They were just like, we can bump this up, just on like a hardware level. We don't need updates to these games individually. But then there were some games that also got specific patches and updates that allowed it to make use of that power upgrade in like very specific ways, like resolution or like frame rate. And I'll be interested to see how many games Nintendo purposefully patches modes like this into versus how many things like Breath of the Wild, for example, they're like, when you plug that in, it will just look better and perform better than it did before, just because there's more overhead. Or if they need to actually issue like a decimal point number patch to make use of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to talk briefly about Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Huge deal, this game.
It seems like, it's been reviewed quite positively, it seems.
Yeah.
I am not an Assassin's Creed person myself. Never really have been, especially like being kind of turned off by the open world Assassin's Creed games. Didn't really resonate with Valhalla, for example. I did like Odyssey. I did play a bunch of Odyssey.
Good Take Squad
cool.
logging on.
That's of all of, like, I have tried them all. Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla. What's the other one? I forget. Like, there wasn't
Mirage was the most
Mirage. I haven't played Mirage. But like of all of them, I resonated with Odyssey the most, probably because of the setting. But I am more than mildly, I am interested in Shadows. And a couple of things that are interesting. The game is Steam Deck verified. So consider these two polar opposites. The game is Steam Deck verified, but at the same time, the same game runs horribly on the latest generation of M4 Max.
Yes, this is to me just unbelievable. I mean, I felt bad the other day because Jonathan, one of our writers, had said in our Discord that he was going to buy the game on the Mac, and I didn't see the message right away, and I would have immediately said, "Don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it," because I had already seen a couple of posts where people had tried it online and were getting like 10 to 15 frames per second. And this is using, a lot of these people are using M4 MacBook Pros. And I know just from my own experience, I've got a loaner MacBook Pro from Apple that's the top of the line M4 Max. And I've run a couple of games, recent kind of like AAA games that have shown up on the Mac App Store on it. And they play very poorly. I mean, they will play on that hardware at a lower resolution and lower settings. You cannot max them out. And no matter what settings you use, the fans spin up immediately and very loudly, and the machine gets very hot. It's just not. And the thing about this is, too, I think that Assassin's Creed Shadows has been optimized for Metal, supposedly, for the Metal graphics engine that Apple uses, which is their own thing. And you would expect that it would run better on that. But Assassin's Creed has had, I think if you look back at the news stories about Assassin's Creed games on Mac, none of them have performed particularly well on it.
Yeah, I also I tried playing Civilization 7 on my new MacBook Pro the other day. Another game that supposedly has like great Mac support. You can buy it through the App Store, et cetera, et cetera. I bought the Steam version because I already had it, or I was using the Steam version because I already had it. But like, I launched that game, and again, like, it sounded like the Mac was going to take off and shoot into space. Yeah, and it started like, I could feel the heat radiating into my legs while I was like in bed trying to play it. It was like not a comfortable, fun Civilization experience. Messing around with settings and trying to like tone down the graphics and stuff did not help very much. So when I saw that when I saw Assassin's Creed Shadows was launching on Mac, I was like, it's nice that Ubisoft is still supporting this, but I am dubious about how well it's actually going to support it. But the fact that it works on the Steam Deck is very interesting. I was watching some videos of people trying to run it on the ROG Ally X, which is the device that I have. And it seems like it runs at a frame rate and a resolution that, at least for me, is fine. When you start getting into the like how well does this run on Steam Deck conversations, you start to bump up against the like PC master race nightmare people very quickly, where it's like 720p is or 720p is like unplayable, and I'm like, it's not though. And at least for me, you know, I guess it's very subjective, but you know, the fact that I can play Assassin's Creed Shadows at 720p at like 30 or 40 frames per second on the ROG Ally X, great, amazing that I can do that. I was planning on literally just streaming it over GeForce Now the whole time, and it's nice that I don't have to do that I can play it like in the airplane when I'm traveling and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, I think it's worth noting too, like especially when you're, you know, going back to the MacBook Pro for a minute, is that it's almost impossible to get those fans going on a MacBook Pro doing any kind of productivity tasks. The only thing that I've ever been able
unless
to do,
you're running AI locally. In that case,
well, yeah, I suppose if you're running AI, if you're doing AI models locally, or I was going to say Handbrake can get it going very very quickly too. But for the most
Handbrake is for
video
is for reprocessing video
yeah.
files into other formats, just for people who haven't heard of it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say one last thing about Assassin's Creed Shadows?
Yes.
I haven't bought it yet. I'm interested in buying it at some point. Like you, Federico, I've tried most of the Assassin's Creed games, and Odyssey was the last one that I really enjoyed. The thing that I can't stop thinking about, though, with Assassin's Creed Shadows is a lot of the reviews are like, it feels a lot like the other ones, it's just in a different place. And depending on how much you liked those will really inform how much you like this one. And the second big thing, waiting in the wings, is that Ghost of Yotei, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, comes out this year. And it's like, Ghost of Tsushima was already the better Assassin's Creed. And the fact that there's a sequel coming out this year is like really bad timing for Shadows.
And like arguably, if you want to get like one of the things that I wanted to do this year, for example, I played Ghost of Tsushima on PS4 and then 5 a couple of years ago. Never finished it, never finished the main story. And I did get like 25 hours into it, but then I sort of dropped off. But
same brain.
Yeah.
I know where this is going. Same brain. Yes, keep going.
Here's what I'm thinking. If Yotei is coming out this year and I want to play Yotei, and if the Tsushima director's cut is now on Steam, and I could play arguably on a Steam Deck with pretty good performance.
It runs great on Steam Deck.
It runs great on Steam Deck.
Oh, does it? Nice.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe if I have to spend 50 to 60 hours, potentially more, in a virtual version of feudal Japan, maybe I should just revisit Tsushima instead of playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. That is my one doubt that I have about this game. Because otherwise, I mean, it looks nice, but is it, nice enough to convince me not to play the Ghost series again this year? I don't know.
Yeah.
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 I'm going to talk about the Steam Deck a little bit more and about performance in a few minutes because I'm bringing something about that to the show today. We need to talk about... So last week, we had a bunch of things up in the air about a bunch of upcoming handhelds that were supposedly getting a reveal at GDC, at the Qualcomm booth. And we sort of couldn't make sense of like, why are these companies sort of scheduling these announcements for GDC at the Qualcomm event? There was, of course, the mystery chipset of the Retroid Pocket Classic. There were the AYANEO Pocket 2S teaser. And, well, it all happened together at the same time, indeed, with a Qualcomm press release. So here's the deal. Qualcomm announced, we never really mentioned this on the show before. This is the first time we're talking about this. Qualcomm had a series of gaming optimized Snapdragon chips. These are the G series. They had the G1, multiple generations of the G1. I believe they had the G1 1 and the G1 Gen 2. But here, they rolled out with the press release at GDC a whole lineup of G series Snapdragons. And most of the handhelds that we talked about are using it, including a bunch of surprises. So there's the sort of flagship of the G series is the new G3 Gen 3. Then there's the G2 Gen 2. Oh gosh, this is worse than USB.
These names are terrible.
This is worse than USB.
No sense to me.
It's like the USB consortium called up Qualcomm and be like, hey, you want some...
Can you make us look good?
You want some...
What if Right. What if we make a Gen 3 chip that doesn't have a Gen 2 or a Gen 1? That's what the G3
G3
is.
Gen 3, G2 Gen 2, and G1 Gen 2. Okay, that's all. Oof. So anyway, the AYANEO Pocket 2S is using the flagship, the G3 Gen 3. Then there's the Retroid Pocket Classic is using the G1 Gen 2. So mystery chipset revealed. And we have to talk about this new handheld, this Transformers worthy of a handheld from the same folks who brought you the OneXPlayer stuff. This one is called the OneXSugar. Don't ask me why it's called the OneXSugar. But
it's sweet.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's sweet. So the OneXSugar debuted at GDC. It's a modular transformable handheld that has 2 screens that you can sort of flip and rotate in 3 different configurations with controllers that can swivel around those screens.
All right, that was a pretty good description, because I was going to say modular doesn't even do this thing justice, because the way these controllers work is like they flip down from one screen to the other screen, which basically makes your controllers go from one orientation to the upside down orientation of those controllers, which I gotta think is going to be kind of weird. It's going to feel kind of weird, but
so this is another one that is using the flagship of the G series, the G3 Gen 3. And before we get into the details of the OneXSugar, just some technical context. I don't want to get into the weeds of like, is the G series better than the regular Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 or 3? No. Is it better than the Elite? No. It's slightly worse than those. Those chips are technically like phone or tablet optimized. The fact that phone companies or like the likes of Ayn, for example, are repurposing those chips for gaming consoles is a different conversation. But the one asterisk that I want listeners to keep in mind here is that I did some reading and I talked to a bunch of folks in Discord. It seems like, as far as, for example, emulation is concerned, the G series, because they don't have the Orion CPU core and they don't exactly support like the same Adreno drivers for the GPU, it seems like actually emulation on the G series is slightly worse and has more compatibility issues than if you're using an off-the-shelf phone chip like a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 or, God forbid, a Gen 3 or an Elite for emulation purposes. So makes sense, because again, those regular flagship Snapdragons, they gotta do a whole bunch more things. Like they gotta support cellular connectivity. They gotta support, multi-touch gestures, for example. Like they need to handle a lot more tasks compared to a gaming console. But keep that in mind if you're looking for like high-end emulation, like you want to run a GameCube game at 4K or 5 times the resolution, you're probably gonna run into more issues with the G series. But those are still going to be pretty good if you just want to say GameCube at 1080p and, you want to have a stable, 30 FPS emulation. Just saying that at the very high end, you're probably going to be better served by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, for example, in the Odin 2. That being said,
where you can get drivers and updates
where you can get drivers,
from the community.
Yes, much better supported. So keep that in mind. Obviously, that's not going to be a problem for something like the Retroid Pocket Classic, which, it's going to run Android. It's going to have the G1 Gen 2. It's going to run, I bet like PlayStation games going to be not a problem, like PS1 games not a problem. Obviously, Super Nintendo games, absolutely not going to be a problem. You can run a Super Nintendo game on your microwave chip, I bet. That's not an issue. Let's look at the high end. So we were talking about the OneXSugar. As a parenthesis up front, I am so excited about this weird thing. This immediately shot up the list of my most anticipated handhelds of the year. And how could it not? So you're looking at a handheld that is incredibly chunky, incredibly angular and thick, has 2 screens, okay? 3 different modes. You can have, there's a big screen, 16:9, and there's another 3:2, I think, aspect ratio screen. This smaller screen can either be used as a kickstand. So
it's my favorite bit.
It's folded in the back, and you're just looking.
You heard that right. A kickstand.
You heard that right. A kickstand. But what? A kickstand, but it's also a screen. All right. Innovation. Incredible. So it can be folded in the back, and it's a kickstand. So it holds the big screen upright, and the small screen is in the back. Or you can do small screen at the top, sort of poking out of the console. You have a sort of like a periscope, sort of just floating above it. There's a small screen. Or you can do the third configuration, which is Nintendo DS-like configuration. It's the small screen below and the big screen above it, right? So basically like a Nintendo 3DS, sort of. You got the big wide screen above and the small screen below it. I am so excited about this thing. Pre-orders are gonna open up in May, so we still have a few months to go. We're gonna run Android with the G3 Gen 3.
Right.
I am so skeptical about a whole bunch of things. Like, for example, the idea of two-screen Android-based emulation for DS or 3DS games is pretty much unproven territory right now. I know that there's a version of Citra, the 3DS emulator, specifically the MMJ version, that does have dual screen emulation support. I still need to play around with this. I'll bring it to the show whenever I have the time to actually play around with it. There's the new emulator for 3DS.
Melon?
Not Melon, that's DS.
Oh, the other one.
The new one for 3DS.
Starts with an A.
Azahar.
Azahar,
So
Azahar,
Azahar is actually like something that was announced last year. It's Lime 3DS and the Pablo MK7 fork of Citra sort of merging together in a new 3DS emulator that's currently in beta or alpha testing. I know that one of the developers is sort of hanging out in the NPC Discord, which is pretty cool. And I know that they are working on dual screen emulation, but this is very early days for dual screen emulation on Android. And here we have OneXSugar specifically making what I bet will be an expensive handheld targeting two-screen native emulation on Android. Who knows what's going to happen, right? But I mean, this thing can swivel, can fold, can rotate. How could I not be into that?
It's got kickstand energy all over it. Federico kickstand energy.
My God.
Yeah, it's so thick, Federico. I don't know how this thing could possibly be comfortable to hold.
I have no idea. I am so here for the chaos that is this console.
Okay.
I'm very interested specifically in the fact that it doesn't have a real D-pad. It just has like 4 more face buttons on the left, kind of like the Switch, I guess, in that way. And I'm really interested specifically in the locking mechanism when you put it in different formations. Because my worst nightmare, my worst fear about this is that you will get it into a configuration and start playing, and then suddenly it'll like fall apart, or like something will happen that will like dislodge a controller while you're playing it. Like it just feels like that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Now this is coming from the company that made like the OneXPlayer stuff. They made the One-X eGPU or whatever they call that thing.
They make good stuff. I can tell you
make good stuff.
Yeah,
it's quality.
Yeah. So it's still we're not done with the G3 Gen 3 because AYANEO
Of course.
revealed officially the Pocket 2S. So this is a revision of the Pocket S2, not the Pocket 2S. The Pocket S2. It's the second version of the Pocket S that uses the G3 Gen 3 and supposedly improves upon the first version in a bunch of key areas. Better cooling, bigger battery, better handheld design, according to AYANEO, and improved Hall effect joysticks. Now, I remember that cooling and comfort of the controllers were the key sort of negatives of the first Pocket S. So we'll see. Well, I mean, obviously, it looks as beautiful as ever in terms of hardware. AYANEO makes nice looking stuff, that's for sure. But we may be looking, of course, at another $500+ purchase.
Yeah.
At the
I think
same
there's no
time,
world in which this thing is not $600.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We're not done with AYANEO.
We're not done with AYANEO.
And it's not the Pocket Ace either.
No, because they brought a surprise to GDC. AYANEO is getting into gaming tablets. So they announced the AYANEO gaming pad It's an 8.3-inch tablet running Android with the Snapdragon G3 Gen 3. Same size, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John, of the Legion Tab. 8.3.
I think that is, yeah, I think that's the same size. Yeah.
So they're going for that market. It looks thicker than that from the product photos. It looks to
really
me
does.
as if AYANEO wants to go after not necessarily the Legion Tab, but the Red Magic tablet, the Red Magic Nova, I think it's called. It's got like similar vibe, like gamer stuff, LED going on, thicker profile. I suppose they must have some kind of active cooling inside to justify that thickness. It seems like,
and the back, I think the back is semi-transparent, so you get kind of that, you can see the insides type of vibe too.
Can be a real gamer, looking at the chips inside.
Window into your computer.
So I don't think we have pricing details or a release date, but yeah, AYANEO getting into tablets.
Yeah, they showed a controller attached to the tablet in one of the product shots, but no information at all about whether that is, comes with it, is separate, or any of the details about it.
And
look, I would bet it's separate. But it is interesting that they're getting into the controller space. It's worth noting that none of the handhelds that they mentioned are the one that we talked about last week, where they were like, there's a perfect handheld that hasn't been made yet.
It's not that.
It's not that one. These are imperfect handhelds.
These are imperfect handhelds.
These are not made for retro gaming. That's the Pocket Ace, which is yet to be revealed.
All right. Now, in NPC XL this week, we are going to talk about what are the weirdest handhelds that we own. So that's going to be our topic. But before we get to that, I want to bring something to the show. So earlier this week, I was picking up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth again. I mentioned before, I think that I started playing the game on PS5, and then of course the game launched on PC. And you know me, if I can play something on the Steam Deck, I will, because I just want to have, portability everywhere instead of... We talked about, the difficulties of streaming PS5 games in NPC XL last week, and all of that applies to Final Fantasy VII. So I was trying to play the game on my Steam Deck, and let me tell you, it looked horrible. Obviously, I was trying to play at 720p, but, at low settings, 2 or 3 characters shown on screen, it was real blurry. Like, it was grainy, it was blurry. It was keeping a stable 30 FPS, but it was not, especially compared to a PS5, of course, like it was not a nice looking experience. It was, especially because it was very blurry. Like the image, when you drop down to those low settings, it looks real blurry. So I was doing some reading online, and I came across these Reddit threads, and I saw I also saw a post by Quinn Nelson. Quinn does an excellent YouTube channel, Snazzy Labs. And I saw that Quinn posted about this incredible plugin, he said, for Decky, which is the plugin sort of store for the Steam Deck, that allowed to use DLSS, so the NVIDIA frame generation and upscaling on a Steam Deck. I was like, wait, how can you use DLSS on a Steam Deck that is using an AMD architecture? So I did some reading, guys, and I need to tell you about this Decky plugin called the Decky Framegen. So this has been going on for the past month or so. And the developer has released a bunch of updates over the past month or couple of months. So Decky Framegen is a quite clever idea. It basically patches games to tell those games that don't have AMD's FSR, but they only support NVIDIA DLSS upscaling and frame generation. It basically sort of tricks them into thinking that they support NVIDIA's upscaling and frame generation, even though it basically bridges DLSS to FSR3. It modifies a registry file to tell those games, yes, you do have access to NVIDIA DLSS, even though you're running on a Steam Deck. But behind the scenes, it's swapping that file for FSR3. And I was like, well, this sounds too good to be true. I don't believe it. I played around before, like last year, with, what's it called? That if you're running Steam on a Windows PC, there's that program, like Fluid Frames.
I remember you told me about that.
Yeah, and there's like this app that you can open on a PC, and you keep it running all the time. And, it looks at your frontmost window, and it sort of doubles the frame rate. And it's got all kinds of weird graphical glitches. Now, Decky Framegen is nothing like that. First of all, you can do it all on a Steam Deck. With the UI, you just need to install Decky, then you open the Decky store and you search for Decky Framegen, you click install, and you're done. You're basically done. You open the Decky Framegen settings, you click one button that says enable mod. You don't see any terminal stuff, you don't see any weird coding thing. You just see one button, you enable the mod. Then you scroll down, you see a list of your installed games. I saw Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I selected it, and I clicked patch game. Did that, opened Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, get this. I'm running Rebirth at 720p, of course. High settings for basically everything. Just, I think, shadow quality I dropped down to low because I don't care about shadows. And ocean quality I dropped down to medium because I don't care about the ocean. 3 characters shown on screen, and I'm running that game at 30 to 40 FPS stable. And it looks so much sharper than the default blurry version of 7 Rebirth on a Steam Deck. It is a miracle. I have no idea. And that's because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Steam does not natively support AMD's FSR. It only supports DLSS. And once you enable this plugin and you patch Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you actually go into the settings of the game and you say enable DLSS on a Steam Deck, and it doesn't crash, it doesn't yell at you, it just says okay. and you can flip back and forth. If you want to see the difference in the game, you can disable and re-enable, and you basically go from a blurry mess of a game that looks horrible to high settings at 720p, and it just doesn't care. It makes this game so much more playable and so much good looking. You got to play around with it. And
wow, that sounds amazing.
One of the things that I found, because you posted about this in our Discord chat, and I was looking into it. This works on any game that has DLSS 2 enabled and runs on DX12.
Yes.
So even if it doesn't have like frame gen in the graphic settings, it still will do frame gen for those games, which is wild. Yeah. And wow. I don't know. That's very interesting. The problem that I'm running into is that I don't know what games meet those criteria. I don't know what games I can use this on. Yeah.
I saw some people, I can tell you that you should be able to play around with Eternal Strands, which I think is one of the games that I saw people. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good game.
It is.
And Final Fantasy 16, I think, is one of the other games that you can try. I think there's a directory somewhere. I saw a bunch of people on Reddit, you know, when people share like a Google Sheet or something where you can go in and see. Yeah, but for sure, 7 Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16, and Eternal Strands are those games that you can test. I am not sure about Indiana Jones, and I am not, there was something else. Oh, Cyberpunk. I think Cyberpunk you can also try. But if I'm not mistaken, then Cyberpunk also has native FSR. I hope we can find some kind of directory. But yeah.
I just found one. I'll put it in our show notes.
Perfect.
Federico, do you know if this, have there been any reports that you've seen of this messing up games and whether it's undoable or not?
Yeah, it's undoable. So if you decide, I don't care about this anymore, I don't want it, before you uninstall the plugin, make sure that you go in the settings, you find your game, and you select unpatch.
So it can be reversed. That's good to know.
All it's doing, it's modifying a registry, a DLL file in the game, I think, that it's telling use FSR instead of NVIDIA, and it's adding a string of text. Again, you never see this yourself, but behind the scenes, it's adding a bunch of launch options to the game on Steam. So it's removing those before you uninstall the plugin if you want to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Obviously, totally open source. It's on GitHub. You can manually install it from a zip file if you want, or you can just get it from the Decky plugin directory, and that's it. Yep. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, we'll put that directory in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales both support it.
Oh, very good.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Decky Framegen.
Okay.
Well, and I think that about does it for this week on NPC.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of NPC. You can find us all online. Brendon is over at wavelengths.online. Federico and I are over at macstories.net. And all three of us are on social media. Just search for our names. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.